Hello students, I hope you enjoyed your vacation and you are doing well. Before Diwali in the semester 1, we had completed chapter number 1 to chapter number 8 in subject science class 6. After Diwali in the semester 2, we are going to study the remaining chapters, that is chapter number 9 to chapter number 16. So here let me start with the chapter number 9. The chapter name is The Living Organisms, Characteristics and Habitat. In this chapter we are going to study about the characteristics of different living organisms and their surroundings and as well as their habitat, that means the place where they are living. So before that, let me see the different surroundings of different places or regions. So Paheli and Bujaho went on vacation and they visited too many places of their interest. One such trip took them to the river Ganga in Rishikesh. One trip they took to the river Ganga in Rishikesh. Then after they went on the another trip and they climbed to mountains of the Himalayas where it was very cold. And at there they saw many kinds of different trees on these mountains like oaks, pines, deodars, and they are very different from the ones near their homes on the plains. These trees which they found on the mountains like oaks, pines and deodar, they are very different from the places, or they are very different from the trees which grow near their houses or where the place where they are living. In yet another trip, they traveled to Rajasthan and moved on camel through the hot desert. Another trip they took to the Rajasthan and they travel on the camels to pass the hot deserts. They collected different kinds of cactus plants from this trip, and on this trip to the Rajasthan they collected different kinds of cactus plants. And finally, then after they went on the trip to Puri and there they visited the sea beach, which is dotted or full with casuarina trees, which is the kind of tree. These kind of trees are found on that sea beach. While recollecting all the fun they had on this trip, a thought struck them and they stuck with the one thought that all these places were so different from one another. Some of these places are very cold, some are very hot and dry, and some places are so humid, that means so much amount of moisture. And yet all of them had many organisms, that means living creatures of various kinds. These places have different climatic conditions, like some are very cold, some are very dry, some places are very humid, and however all these places have different or many living organisms of different kinds. So they tried to think of a place on the earth where there may not be any living creatures. They are trying to find out about the places where there is no living creature on the earth or on the place. So first Bujaho thought of the place near his home, and then after he found for place inside the house. He tried the cupboards, so he had thought that there may not be any living organisms in the cupboard. But he found one tiny spider or small spider in the cupboard. That means at that place also a living organism is there. So then after he found outside the house. And outside the home also he did not find any place. He could think of that he did not even living creatures of some kind or the other. He could not find any place where there is no living organism. So Paheli started thinking and reading about faraway places. Now they are thinking about the faraway places, that where either any places is there on the earth where the living organism is not there. So she read that while finding this, she read that people have even found these tiny living organisms in the openings of volcanoes. Volcano, you know already that what is volcano. It is the eruption of lava, ashes and some gases from the earth, and it comes out to the earth's surface. So she read that people also find the small tiny organisms in these openings of these volcanoes even, or the place where from where these volcanoes are erupting. So that means there is no place where on the earth where the living organisms are not there. Here in the picture you can see that the Paheli and Bujaho are finding about the places where there is no any living organisms, but unfortunately they didn't find any place. So now let we see first about organisms and the surroundings where they are living. So another thought that struck on their mind is Bujaho and Paheli was about the kinds of living organisms that were present in the different location that they had visited. They found that the places, different places which they had visited, that places or those places have the different kinds of organisms. Like the deserts had camels, the mountains had goats and yak, Puri had some other creatures like crabs on the beach and such a variety of fish being caught by the fishermen at the sea. These different places has the different kinds of creatures, like deserts have camels, then mountains have goats and yak, then after sea area or beach area has the crabs and fishes. And then there did seem to be some creatures like ants that were present in all these different locations, and with that ants are also present in all these different locations. The kinds of plants found in each of these regions were too different from the plants on the other regions. Like these animals or creatures, there is the also variation in plants. Plants are also different from region to regions. So now what about the surroundings of these different regions where they same? We had seen that the creature, living organisms and plants are different from place to place. So now what about these surroundings? Is it same for each and every region? So here one activity is given to you. For that, let us start with the forest. You might have visited the forest. Now think of all plants, animals and objects that can be found in the forest. And then after list these plants, animals and object in the column 1 of table 9.1. Here one table is given to you, table 9.1. You have to write the name of the animals, plants and other objects which are found in the different surroundings, like in the forest, on the mountains, in the deserts, then in the sea, or if you had visited other place other than these places, then you can write about those places, the observation of about those places in this last column. So now list things, animals, plants found in the region that are also shown in the table. So now you can collect the examples of scattered through this chapter to fill this table. You can also use or you can also read this chapter and then after you can fill this table. So you have to fill or you can use this chapter also, read this chapter and then after you can fill this table. Now discuss also about this table with your friends, parents and teachers to find out more examples to fill this table. And you can also consult many interesting books. You can read the different books in libraries that talks of animals, plants and minerals of different regions. Minerals, that means a chemical compound which is made up of a single element or more than one element from which we are getting other products or other metals like copper, gold. So these are known as the minerals. So you can find about these animals, plants and minerals from the different books also. And try and include many plants, animals and objects, big and small, in each of the column in this table. And what kind of objects will we find that may not be animals or plants? Other than animals and plants, what other kinds of object we can find from the different places, that also you can write in this table. Perhaps the parts of the plants like dried leaves, some examples are given to you here, like dried leaves, then after parts of animals like bones, Then we may also find different kinds of soils and pebbles. If you had noticed that each and every region has different kinds of soils and pebbles also. Then after water in the ocean may have salts dissolve in it. As discussed, we had discussed in the chapter number 5, there could be many more objects. Like all the places do not have same kind of water. So you can write about this kind of objects also. As we go through the chapter, keep adding more example to this table, and then after we will discuss this table as we travel through the many more interesting places. So first, before going on the different places, let me see what is habitat and adaptation. So what do you find from the plants and animals? If you had listed this information in the first table or in the activity number 1, then what did you find from the animals and plants? Did you find a large variety in them? You will find that they are different from each other. Look at what you have entered in the columns for the desert and what you had entered for the column for the sea. So we know that the animals, there is a vast variety of animals and plants which we are finding in the desert area and the sea area. Did you list very different kinds of organism in these two columns? So yes, in the sea we find that earlier here we had discussed as that in the sea area we find crabs, fishes, and in the desert areas we find camels, etc. So now what are the surroundings like in these two different regions? So let me see that in the sea, plants and animals are surrounded by saline water. Saline, that means salty water. The salty water is there and plants and animals are surrounded by this water. And most of them use the air dissolved in this water. To get the oxygen, they are using the air which is dissolved in the water. And there is very little water available in the desert. As opposite side, on the opposite side, the desert has the very little amount of water, and it is very hot in the daytime and very cold at the night time. The animals and plants of the desert live on the desert soil and breathe air from their surrounding. They are living on the sand or soil of the desert and they breathe in air from their surroundings only. The sea and the desert are very different surroundings, and we find very different kinds of plants and animals in these two regions. Isn't it? Let us now look at two very different kinds of organisms from the desert and the sea. The organisms are also different according to the different regions, like a camel and a fish. A camel from the desert region and a fish from the sea region. So the body structure of a camel helps it to survive in the desert condition. How the camel can survive in the desert condition? So camel has some special features by which it can survive in the desert regions. So first here it is given to you that camels have long legs which help them to keep their body away from the heat of the sun. They have the long feet, because of that they can protect themselves from the heat of the sun. They excrete small amount of urine, or they release small amount of urine, and their dung is dry and they do not sweat. And because of all this, since camel lose very little water from their bodies, and they can live for many days without the water, as in the desert regions there is the very little amount of water is there. So these features help camel to survive or to live in the desert regions for many days without water. Now let me look at the different kinds of fishes. Some of these are shown here in the next figure. Here in the first figure, the camel is shown to you in its surrounding, and here the different kinds of fishes are shown to you in this figure. So there are so many different kinds of fish, but do you see that they all have something common about their shape? If you had noticed, then their shapes are almost the same. All the ones shown here have this streamline shape. Streamline shape, that means this shape like this. From the front sides, it is like the corner shapes, and as you move forward, it will become wider. So this is known as the streamline shape. So all the fishes almost have this streamline shape, and that was discussed, we had already discussed this in the chapter number 8, and this shape helps them to move inside the water easily. And fishes have the slippery scales on their bodies, and the scales protects the fish and also help in the easy movement in the water. And we had also discussed in the chapter 8 that fish have the flat fins. Their fins are flat and the tails is also flat, and which help them to change the direction and to keep their body balanced in the water. And gills are also present in the fish, help them to use oxygen dissolved in the water. Because of these gills, they can use the water, or they can use the oxygen which is dissolved in the water. So these are the some special features or characteristics of the fishes. So we see that the features of a fish helps it to live inside the water, and the features of a camel help it to survive in the desert. These features help both of them to survive in their surroundings. So we have taken only 2 examples from a very wide variety of animals and plants that live on the earth. We had just took the 2 examples. In all this variety of organisms, we will find that they have certain features. All the living organisms which we are finding around us, they all have some special features which help them to live in their surroundings in which they are normally found. They all have some special characteristics by which they can live in their surroundings. And the presence of this special feature or certain habits which enables an organism to live in a naturally in a place is called the adaptation. These features by which these animals or these living organisms can live in their surroundings, so these features are known as the adaptation. The adaptations of organisms differ, or they are different, and it is depending on the place they are dwelling or they are living. And that is why a fish cannot live outside of water and a camel cannot live inside the sea. That is the reason the fish cannot live outside the water, and the camel cannot live in the water. The place where this living organism live is called habitat. Adaptation we had seen. Now what is habitat? So the place where this living organism live is known as the habitat, and habitat means a dwelling place or a place where they are living, or you can say home of that animals or living organism. This habitat provides the food, water, air, shelter and other needs to the organisms, and several kinds of plants and animals live in the same habitats. Like we had seen, the cactus are found in the desert and camels are also found in the desert. So these different living organisms are found in the same habitat. The plants and animals that live on the land are said to live in terrestrial habitats. Now there are different, according to the regions or places, there are different kinds of habitats are also there. The first one in that is terrestrial habitats. So the plants and animals that live on land, that means terrestrial animals, have the terrestrial habitats. Some examples of terrestrial habitats are forests, grasslands, deserts, coastal and mountain regions. And on the other hand, the another type of habitat, so the habitats of plants and animals that live in water are known as the aquatic habitats. That means the habitat or the place where the aquatic animals are live is known as the aquatic habitat. Lakes, here some examples are given to you that lakes, rivers and oceans are some examples of aquatic habitats. There are large variation among terrestrial habitats like forests, grasslands, deserts, coastal and mountain regions located in different parts of the world. And amongst these terrestrial habitats also there is the variety, or you can say there is a large variation. So the organisms, both plants and animals living in a habitat, are its biotic components. The living organisms or living components which we live in the particular habitat is known as the biotic components, like animals and plants. the non-living things or non-living factors such as rocks, soil, air and water in the habitat constitute, or they are the components, you can say they consist of abiotic components. They are components and they are abiotic components. So now here one question is that, are sunlight and heat biotic or abiotic components? So for that we know that some plants grow from seeds. So let us look at some abiotic factors that effect on the seeds as they grow into young plants. These are some factors, sunlight and heat. These are the abiotic components which help the seed to get germinate or to grow into a young plants. So that how these factors help this seed to grow into a young plant, that we will see in the next activity. The two main abiotic factors, that is heat and sunlight. Here before that one fact is given to you that there are some changes that can happen in an organism over a short period of time to help them adjust to some changes in their surrounding. If some changes are happening or occurring in our surrounding, then some changes are also taken place in our body for this short period of time. For instance, if we live in the, one example is given to you that if we live in the plains and suddenly go to the high mountain regions, we may experience difficulty in breathing and doing physical exercise for some days. If we are living in the plains and for somewhat reason we are going to the hilly regions or on the high on the mountains, then we find the difficulty in breathing. So for that we are doing some physical exercise for some days and we need to breathe faster when we are on the high on the mountains. So after some days, after doing some this physical exercise for some days, and by the practicing the faster breathe, doing or taking faster breath, after some days our body adjusts to the change conditions on the high mountains. Our body adapt the surrounding of this high mountain. So such small change, this small change is small and this is change is for small or short period of time. So this change take place in the body for a single organism over a short periods to overcome small problems due to changes in the surrounding are called acclimatization. So these changes are known as the acclimatization, which occur in an organism for a short period of time to overcome a small period, so and to adapt its surrounding. So this kind of changes are known as the acclimatizations. And these changes are different from the adaptation that take place over thousands of years, and it is different from the adaptation. We had seen that the animals or organisms which are living on the particular area or particular habitat, they have some special features that is known as the adaptation. This adaptation is take place over thousands of years, and this acclimatization, it can happen in a small day practicing, after practicing for the small days, and it is for the short period of time. So this acclimatization and adaptation is different things. So till now in this chapter we had seen that the different regions have different variety of living organisms like animals, plants. Other than that, other also components, abiotic components are also there like soil, pebbles, water, air. So there is the variation in the surrounding and in the living organisms of different places. And then after we had seen what is adaptation and what is habitat. We had seen that the living organism, animals as well as plants that which are present in the different regions have some special features also, and these features help them to survive in their surroundings. So in the next video we will study the remaining part of this chapter. Thank you.